So next up, we have more friends of the industry. We're talking about facilitating branded events, and we have my good friend Daniel Dybosky Bryant that's going
Hello.
to be moderating this panel, and it's a perfect lead in to what we can expect a month from now, which is the production summit. And so this is a perfect blend. This summit, this panel is a perfect blend of kind of the crossover between entertainment and how brands can use production and entertainment for, their activations and campaigns, and then kind of then leading into what we're going to be hearing at the production summit, and kind of how to, produce these types of productions and events and things like that, to reach their maximum capability. So we have left you in good hands with the people on this panel today, because they're all well-known experts in this space in terms of facilitating branded virtual events and in real life events. So look forward to hearing from you guys. Take it away, Daniel.
Thank you for that, Sonia. I'm really excited about this panel because we have some real veterans and decades of experience, I think, here in the industry. We've got Sonia Haskins, Head of Programming from AWE. Hi, Sonia. We
Thanks,
have
Pam.
Athena from Big Rock Creative, who's produced many events and different guises, and Anne-Marie Ennis, of course, Immerse Global Summit, who is actually in the place that you see in the background there. So we're all a little bit envious. I mean, I've got a pool behind me here, but not quite as good as a whole hotel and a resort. Welcome all to this panel, Facilitating Branded Events. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. So we only have half an hour, and I've got a lot of questions, so buckle in, strap in. First of all, you guys have been producing events in many different ways and different platforms. And I wanted to point out that we have here a spread of producers. So we've got some real world production experience, we've got some immersive production experience, and we've got some 2D production experience. I know, Anne-Marie, your conferences are primarily in 2D, is that right?
I have a history of doing in real life events, and then when we went virtual, it was mostly 2D, and then just a few things in alt space as well. So mostly live,
Mostly
COVID-driven 2D. But I've been doing live events for about 25 years. So yeah.
Fantastic. Okay.
Yes.
And Sonia, I know you're head of programming at AWE, so you're doing mostly live as well, and you've got AWE Live, the platform happening as well now, right?
Yes, so we do mostly in-person live events, but we also have AWE Live platform, as you mentioned, and so I'm responsible for curating most of those talks, but we also have on that platform our AWE Live nights, and those are actually a combination of, some of them are virtual and some of them are in-person monthly events around the globe that people go and meet in person, and then we post information about those as well. But an interesting note here, Anne-Marie mentioned how long she had been doing this. So I did some other things with live events of a different nature, not XR, but then I received my training in XR from her. So it's cool how we all kind of, cross over paths.
Wonderful. And Athena, if I'm not mistaken, most of yours is immersive production, is that correct?
Only since COVID. So I came from the live event world, and I had been doing live events for 20 years.
Right.
For the Burning Man community in Los Angeles, but also other events all over, and transitioned to virtual when COVID hit.
Okay.
And then I've been doing a lot of events, mainly on the AltSpace platform.
Right. And I know that you all deal with a lot of brands. So my first question, and I'll start with Anne-Marie.
Sure.
What's the demand like from brands for immersive events or events in this industry? Is it growing? Is it stagnant? Is it falling off after COVID? Where are we at with that?
I think it's really interesting because you would think that it would be falling off after COVID, but what we're seeing is a surgence of new brands that weren't involved in the immersive space before that are really looking to come in and be a part of it. So I don't know that whether that's with the emergence of the the hot topic of the metaverse word.
Yeah.
But we're definitely finding that our traditional brands, our sponsors have always been usually people in the XR space or directly affected by the XR space. But now we're getting a lot of bigger brands, set names, car companies, drink companies that are like, hey, I got to get in here. And they don't know quite how to do it. And they see events as a really great and easy way to get in because they understand events, and then they expect us to take them into the next level and expose them to this market. So we're finding a great demand for it. And then as I have my own event production company as well, a lot of companies calling going, how do I do events? What do I do to get into them? What can I do?
Yeah.
Because it's part of our marketing budget for this year, and I'm not really certain what that means, but I need your help to make that a reality. So that's what we're finding right now.
Very interesting. Athena, how about you? You seeing similar trends?
Yeah, so I think there was kind of a holdout where there were some bigger brands that were waiting to see what was going to happen in this space and if it was real. If this was, like at the beginning of the internet, they all held out. It's like, I don't know if I really need a website. Now you couldn't even imagine starting a business without having a website. In fact, a lot of people start a website and they get their URL before they even do any sort of LLC or incorporation.
And they'll choose their name based on whether the URL is available or not, right?
Correct. So I think what's happening right now is some of the bigger brands, banking companies is actually what we're getting hit with a lot right now. Is they were waiting. Is this a COVID only thing? But then they realized that it gave them access to their clientele in a way that their website wouldn't, in a compelling and engaging way that really builds a community around a brand. So it's not just clients, it's a community. And that's what we can build in immersive social VR. And a lot of brands are now seeing this as a positive way to engage with their communities and build them.
Okay. So a little bit kind of FOMO versus holding back to see if it's going to pay off and be real. Sonia, how about you? Is that reflecting to AWE as well?
Yeah, for sure. And actually, Athena's comments were a good segue into what I was already thinking for mine, that basically I totally agree with what they're saying. And like with Anne-Marie, we're also seeing a lot of car companies and clothing type companies, things like that, major brands that really want to be involved, and they really were waiting to see what opportunities, basically what would happen, and are people really going to be interested in this sort of thing? Just like Athena said, when websites first came about, everybody's kind of going, do we want to do that? Do we not want to do that? And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, we should have done that. So I think people are now realizing that same thing. But what's really cool from my perspective with, I have helped quite a while now, several years with events, but specifically one of the things I've done a lot of also before that was community work. And so to Athena's point, I think that a lot of these brands also are recognizing the fact that, yes, they want to promote the brand. They have advertising budgets and things like that, but it's not just the traditional mindset of advertising. We're coming into a whole new realm here where it's about more than just seeing a picture or a logo or whatever. We have actual communities. Like we have people who want to relate and talk, because as we all know, when you're dealing with immersive reality, you have presence and you're actually in those realities. So people are wanting to ask questions and wanting to interact with each other more than they could before. And for some people who aren't familiar with immersive reality, I think it's hard for them to understand more interaction than, say, the internet. They just don't get it if they've never been involved with it yet. And so for me, I see that as part of this whole discussion, because we are also, the brands are looking for ways to build the whole community, not just put their logo somewhere. And so that's a little bit of a different take on it, but it's an important point, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Fascinating. So there is demand. There's a bit of FOMO. I actually made a note of FOMO. I got a new acronym. Failed on metaverse opportunity. FOMO. There you go.
Oh, clever. I like that.
That is clever.
So I want to ask the next question. So it's given that brands are certainly more curious. Some of them are ready to engage and explore, others maybe not quite yet. But when they do come to you asking questions, say, help us out, um, are the platforms you're using and is your experience up to scratch in terms of meeting their needs? So I'm not particularly a big producer, but if a brand came to me with high needs, like I'm thinking a Coca-Cola or a Nike, they're going to have really high spec needs. And then now you got to say, well, this is what's possible versus what they want. Are we in a position to deliver what brands want, what they need, what they expect in terms of the quality? Maybe Athena.
I would say no, we're not there yet. I've already had prospective clients reach out to us and say, we want to do these 5 things. And it's like, you can do those 5 things, but these 2 are on this platform, and this one's on this platform, and this one's on this platform. And because we don't have interoperability yet, it's sort of like, pick your platform per the things that are most important to you. And that's what we're doing right now. Nobody has wanted to jump in and build their own app. I haven't had that yet. They want to build it on an app that already exists, a platform that already exists, because that's simpler. To build your own platform is millions of dollars.
Right.
And there isn't a brand that's like, well, I want these 5 things. And I'm like, well, those 5 things don't exist all in one space.
Right.
So we could build your own app where it does, and that'll take about a year, and we'll get it all done, and you'll be out about $3 million, $5 million, $12 million, depending on what they want, or we can do this proof of concept that is 2 of the things you want on this particular platform, or 1 of the things that you wanted on this particular platform, and do it that way. And so that's what we've been doing. And Big Rock Creative has built quite a number of proof of concepts that live on different platforms, mainly Altspace, but then also on others.
Yeah.
And it's just sort of a place for their community to play while the technology catches up and we get more interoperability across the platforms. What we have right now is a multiverse. We don't even have a metaverse. The metaverse doesn't exist. The metaverse will exist when we do get this full interoperability across the platforms. With the internet, you get all these hyperlinks and you can hop from site to site to site. Well, you can't do that with these immersive worlds.
Right.
So we're looking at multiverse, and we're probably 3 to 5 years out before we have anything that resembles the beginning of the metaverse.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. I mean, sounds like good news for the social platforms that are carrying the weight. When the brands don't want their own apps, they want to have it on existing apps. Sounds like pretty good news for the multi-user platforms that they're being hosted on.
Yeah, they're just not ready to spend the money that it would take to get everything they want.
Yeah, fair enough.
I get it. They're just like dipping their toe in. They're like, we're gonna do like a $20,000 thing. Like, okay.
But then I think also too, based on that, like a lot of them see, like, I want what this person did in Fortnite, like the big concerts and the big wow, because those are the things that are out in the world, and that's what they want, but they don't realize what actually goes into it or what it takes to build that, like Athena was saying. So I think that it's difficult to manage those expectations and to educate people on what they're looking for. And then when you're delivering something through events, it's not that platform, and it's not that platform yet, like Athena was saying. And, we try to find the balance between in-person and this and that, but the expectations are, like Travis Scott and Fortnite, but you're like, I have an event at a hotel and an Altspace room. Like, that's what, like you're kind of balancing what you have. So it's our job to educate them, but Athena's totally right. We're not there yet unless people have the huge budget.
And even Travis Scott and Fortnite wasn't there.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. But that's
4 million people were together, and I'm like, no, they weren't.
They weren't at all. That's what was in the news.
On a computer screen, but they weren't in immersive VR.
Yeah, exactly.
Sonia, how about you? I mean, with your events, you don't necessarily you're not producing immersive content, but you're dealing with a lot of brands who are battling with these questions. What's your take on that?
Yeah, so my advice to them, I actually, we all have that question a lot. And so all of our answers are going to be slightly different, but I think we all agree. I agree totally with what they're saying. So, but as far as what I do specifically in my job, I look at what advice can I give this person right now that is going to most help them. And so basically for what we do, which Anne-Marie is very similar to this particular part of it, and that, you know, the live events that we produce for big conferences, I basically tell them, what is it that you're trying to achieve at this moment in time, and who's your audience? So like, for example, and this would, same thing with the Athena, and I'm sure she does this every day, but we have to say, who are you trying to reach? Is it, you know, young people of a certain age group? Are you trying to reach general public? Are you trying to reach the average consumer? Are you trying to reach people interested in health and fitness? So because of the limitations we have right now, I then say, I recommend that you look at what options are available already out there, because again, nobody wants to spend $2 million to create their own app at this point. And I mean, some people actually do ask about that. And obviously I personally, I'll tell them, you know, what they can do and who they can reach out to, but it's very expensive. And you also have the risk that nobody's going to care. Like nobody's going to want that anyway. And so do we really want to be giving people poor advice? I mean, I just don't. I very much believe in give people practical advice, a starting point they can work with right now, and then how to best reach the people with whatever messages they want to send. So like if they're wanting to sell a product, if they're wanting to sell a new XR product, for example, well, that's a little bit different than you want to sell a car, a specific type of car, or a clothing logo brand, or whatever, you know. I mean, all these questions are dependent upon who's asking you and how much money they have, what their interest level is in it. So it's a broad question, I think, with several different answers.
You're obviously in a position where you're being asked a lot of questions. So whether you like it or not, you're in a position of consulting companies. I imagine that's a really growing area right now. We've got 100 brands coming at you. Everybody's heard about this metaverse gold rush, and they're coming at you. Are you concerned at all that these brands are meeting consultants who don't really know, and they're getting maybe advice that
Of course.
Oh yeah.
Exactly.
Totally
Chief
happening.
Metaverse Officer, right?
To us with all sorts of ideas, and then we're like, that's not possible. It's not possible right now. It'll be possible later, but that's not possible right now. And they're like, oh, but so and so said, and I'm like, oh,
that's so
okay. That's so and so.
Follow-up question then. How often do you get approached by even decision makers about, you know, can you do this? Can you do that? This is what I want. This is what I don't want. And you say, so how much VR have you done? Or do you have a headset? And then there's silence, and they don't, never. How much do you get that, Athena?
Regularly.
Right.
Regularly, we'll have a company contact us, and they very much want to do this. And we're like, great. Why don't we give you a tour? This is our favorite thing to do, is like, why don't we give you a tour of the world that we built? You can see what's possible, and that will help you inform your design. Do you have a headset? No. You should probably consider buying one. But you know, Altspace is on PC and Mac. So we're like, well, we can show you on a PC or Mac. And then ultimately what we end up doing, which is probably the worst stopgap, is we'll get on like a Zoom or a Teams or a Google Meet call. And then one of us will go into World and share what our avatar is seeing. So we share screen, and then like I'll be in the world and Doug will be sharing his screen, or vice versa. And we'll be walking around and explaining what we're seeing. And then it's like, that's not VR. That's screen sharing. It's not, but sometimes that's the best that you can do in the moment.
It's a little bit like they say, hey, I want to go see the Great Barrier Reef. And you're like, great, let's go. So you walk to the beach, and they say, wait, but I don't want to get wet. Right?
Yeah. But I don't know how to swim.
Exactly. Don't know how to swim.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I want to see the Great Barrier Reef, but I don't know how to swim. We're like, okay, that's not going to work.
So maybe Sonia and Anne-Marie, for your in-person events, At what point would you consider running substantial parts of your events in VR alongside your live program? I know some conferences have tried that. It's like a hybrid solution. Because you are big brands, both of you. Immerse Global Summit, AWE, you have in-person events yourselves. What would it take for you to consider adding a virtual component, an immersive virtual component to your offering, Sonia?
Yeah, before I answer that, actually, I wanted to make a comment about. I agree with what Athena's saying. I think that we do get a lot of people who maybe want to talk about XR that never use it, or they just don't know what it is. And so the reason I want to address this real quick is because it partly answers your question, but I just want to make it clear there is such a place and a thing for, obviously. Things that aren't in immersive reality. Right. And so some people are never going to use that. And so like for me, for example, personally, there are things I prefer to do on Zoom versus hopping in headset. I prefer team meetings to be on Zoom than going into headset. Although I absolutely would love to be together with anybody in headset, because I like the presence and being there with my friends. And so I think that's just important. Like, we're not trying to criticize anybody who doesn't use VR or hasn't experienced VR. Just, we aren't trying to say that at all. It's just that we want you to understand. And so in answer to your question, partly, Daniel, when I answer those questions about branding and stuff in XR, I do ask them the same questions that Athena just said. And I also make it clear, like, it's okay if you haven't used it, but we want you to understand what it is. And basically, it's just like you're here, except you feel like you're really there as opposed to looking at it 2D. So you try to explain it, but people who are watching this who've never used immersive tech need to understand that you aren't going to fully 100% get it until you put that headset on your head. And so I just think that's important for them to realize. Now, to your question specifically, I don't know if I'm allowed to answer that.
All right.
Are we going to do things? So my opinion is that, okay, here's my opinion. I will answer it just because I have an opinion about it. I love immersive events, but I go into immersive reality to play, to hang out with my friends, and to do certain things. I'll just be honest with you. That's why I go into VR. Every single day of my life, I go into VR. If I saw logos or advertisements or brands being, in my environments, man, I would love that, because I hate shopping in physical reality. I hate going out in physical reality and seeing things in my face, but I love it in VR. I will read every single poster and advertisement that's in my environment. Everyone. I'm not even kidding. Anne-Marie's laughing. Like, I will read every single.
I know you will. That's why.
That's what I'm saying. I'm being honest to goodness. I'll sit there for hours and read it because it's there in my wonderful environment. But I don't want to see that stuff in physical reality. Like, that's just, I have no desire for that. So I think it's the same thing with events. When I go to an event, like what Anne-Marie and I do, our types of events, I want to see and touch and hug and talk to face our people. I want to see the other people who are coming to our events in a physical environment. And when I go in immersive reality, I want to do that in immersive reality. So for me, I'm not answering for Ori because he's my boss. I'm not saying whether we would or wouldn't do that. Just personally, I prefer immersive events and I prefer real life events to be separate.
Okay. I see from Anne-Marie, audio is a bit of an issue. I was going to come to you, Anne-Marie. If you get fixed, I'll come back to you. I have another question then. What was I going to ask now? I'm going to run down. So, do brands, are brands clear on what kind of return they want when they approach you? Athena?
Yes.
Are they very clear on kind of what they want out of their investment with you?
Sometimes. Lots of times they just want to be part of the cool thing that's going on. They want to have a foothold so that And to be fair, a lot of times what it is there's this faction of young people at the company, and they get it, and they've been given this little budget that they can play with. And they've decided to play with this budget by creating some sort of metaverse thing,
Right.
and some sort of offering for their community so that they can get it done and go to the budget controllers and say, but now we need more money because look at this cool thing we created. And we're getting a lot of press from it. We're doing all these things with it. And so we get that happening a lot. But what we have found at Big Rock, the best thing to do is actually be proactive and create something that brands can then interact with.
Mm-hmm.
So like we tried to get all sorts of fan and comic book conventions to jump into the space, and they just couldn't wrap their mind around it. We even talked about like how to hybridize. So we created our own. And this coming, not this Saturday, next Saturday, the 24th, we have this thing called FanCon XR. And it's an opportunity for different comic book publishers to talk about their books, to have their creators on, to be in VR and on Zoom, a combination of both, and engage with their fans and have all of their brand stuff on display, to engage with their communities, because we couldn't get these conferences to jump on. So we were like, well, we'll just do it because the brands want to do it. But no one brand wanted to do it by themselves.
Right.
So we created something that was engaging from multiple brands and to engage with a wider community. So this is going to be a really...
Do you think that sounds really interesting. Do you think that would apply to other industries? I mean, put something on for medical industry brands, or I know educational industry brands. We've done that with our summits. Here's Sophia to cut us off. We want more time. We have so many questions. I want to say a huge thank you to Athena, Anne-Marie Ennis, Sonia. I'll be seeing most of you, if not all of you, over the next year at various conferences. Thank you so much. I've hugely enjoyed it. Keep up the great work, and thank you. Over to you, Sophia.
See you guys soon in person. Yes.
Thank you for the invite, guys.
Thanks, guys. Awesome. Thank you. And thanks, Daniel, for organizing that awesome panel.